Are you excited by AI and looking at the horizon and the frontier like this is going to be the most amazing world? Or are you one of those people who says, holy shit, we are headed towards the apocalypse? Or are you somewhere in between? Or maybe you're in one place, afraid you're going to get to the next place. It is absolutely the most defining moment in the history of the world. It is a special on AI. Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by our friends at LA Golf. All right, we are live on TuneIn and YouTube, and today we're diving into one of the most urgent, thrilling, and unsettling conversations of our time, the rise of artificial intelligence. It's in our homes, in our workplaces. It's shaping the way we think, create, and connect. We're standing at a turning point. Some say it's the dawn of a new renaissance. Others call it a dangerous unknown. There's hope that AI will solve problems we've struggled with for generations, curing disease, combating climate change, expanding human creativity. But there's also fear that it could replace jobs, manipulate the truth, concentrate power, and ultimately outpace our ability to control it. This episode is about that tension between excitement and anxiety, innovation and responsibility. We're going to unpack what AI means for us as individuals, as a society, and as a species trying to navigate the future. Whether you're an optimist, a skeptic, or just plain curious, this conversation is for you. Now, every word of what I've said so far in this show was generated by ChatGPT. Let that sit for a second. Okay, what did you think of everything I've said so far? Pretty functional, right? I don't think there was much like EI in there, emotional intelligence, but it's, pretty effective. Okay, now my words. I've been trying to wrap my head around AI. I'm late, I know. But the hopes, the fears, that connects with me. I've got both. There's no turning back, we know that, even if one day we wish to. The greatest hope is before we realize the depth of its consequences, we find consortium, like cooperation with other countries. Al Gore likes to say he invented the internet. He did not, but the godfather of AI seems indisputable. I've been reading about this man. He's 77 now, longtime college professor of neural networks and deep learning. He's English, and he went to Cambridge. He was living in Toronto in 2012 when he and a couple of grad students broke through and created the first neural network, a mathematical system modeled on the web of neurons in the brain. Basically, he coded the way our brains work, and it could identify common objects like flowers, dogs, and cars with an accuracy that had previously seemed impossible. Geoffrey Hinton is his name. He made the announcement that, hey, I've discovered a neural network. The right people took it very seriously. And 4 major players surfaced right away wanting to buy him and his ideas and his team and his company that he had just developed. They threw a name on his PSA, his release. From room 731 at Harrah's Casino in Lake Tahoe, Geoffrey Hinton ran an auction. The Chinese company Baidu, Google, Microsoft, and a 2-year-old London startup called DeepMind took part in an hour-by-hour bidding war that this guy ran from room 731. Unbelievable. Every hour, and it started at like $5 million. And it ultimately went up to $44 million. Google prevailed. It was the beginning of the global arms race. Okay? Doing a show on AI is me forcing myself to confront something uncomfortable, okay? I'm not a scientific mind. But the man who's joining me is Matt Britton, is the author of Generation AI, a national best-selling book released in May that explores how artificial intelligence is reshaping childhood, culture, and the future of work through the lens of Generation Alpha, the first generation raised with AI as a constant companion. So, Matt, welcome. Generation. Great to see you. Should I just off the bat? Should we be worried that Generation Alpha it's going to happen? So maybe it's best not to worry and just to lean into it. But seems concerning to me that their companion, their nanny, is now artificial.
Yeah, so Generation AI, as you said, is defined by being the first generation to grow up with AI in a household. Right now, they're age 0 to 15, and they are never going to know a world without AI. And from the earliest stages of life, they're going to be interacting with technology the same way that they do humans. We already have seen a case where a teenager tragically committed suicide, and allegedly they did so because they created an intimate relationship with an AI chatbot that caused this person to create self-harm. And there's now a wrongful death lawsuit out there. AI is incredibly powerful and that it can mimic human emotion and human behavior. And to young developing minds, I think it's going to confuse them as well as kind of reshape their worldview and really reshape what it means to be a human. So I think we're really entering uncharted waters. Should we be worried? Sure. I think there's a ton of potential, but there is also a ton of concern.
Yeah, I mean, what about? I'm worried that we're going to stop procreating. I mean that people are going to stop meeting each other and having sex and having families and raising little children and going to the park and doing all these things because you're getting the feedback you want and the attention you want from something artificial. That should we be worried? You think from a population standpoint?
It's a great point, and it's actually already started to happen even pre-AI. If you look at all the
Right.
data,
We already have a trend of like boys and girls not really dating much and marriage not that popular and right?
yeah, I think that the stat was it used to be half of people by the time they got to 18 weren't in a serious relationship, and now it's like 80%. It's shifting that direction because of everything from the proliferation of pornography to gambling to the obviously obsession with social media and dating apps as well. Consumers really, younger consumers find it much more comfortable to just be on their own at their house. And now AI, I think, is even going to proliferate that even further.
We're starting with sex. I love that. So Matt Britton, the author of Generation AI, he is with me, and we are really going to get into this. Here's like where my mind is. Is it possible that we're going to have a world where that constant companion, that boy, who's connecting with, let's say he names her Jessica, and they're talking all the time, whatever. Are we going to get to a place where robotics and AI meet each other and they're going to be able to like contour an actual woman and you as a human can date an artificial woman, and then they'll get to a place where literally they're making vaginas and penises that are the same or feel the same?
So what you're saying is crazy, but also
It
what
is
you're
crazy.
saying is actually very possible. And we are moving in that direction. So, AI is essentially the brain and robotics is the body.
Wait, I
And
just
it's
thought of
coming
something.
together.
Matt, this is crazy, but could you have an AI girlfriend and technically not be cheating? Just kidding.
I think that's up to the person's spouse.
Every guy
Yeah.
thought that. He's like, no, she's
It's a-
not real. She's not real, but she's real.
I think the first place you're going to see robotics is to help with everyday household chores. So, the
Right.
Roomba that cleans your house. Well, the Roomba's the next thing that version's going to do is it's going to mow your lawn and then it's going to do your dishes. And over time, probably 5 years from now, it's going to take your kids to school, right? It's going to be your nanny. You look at autonomous vehicles and, driverless cars are already on the road in places like LA and Austin, Texas and Scottsdale. And it's all kind of combining. When you take the power of AI and robotics combined, you are creating a completely new element in society. And the reason you don't see these robots in the market yet is just it takes time for hardware, but the hardware and the software combining really creates, and I think obviously its implications on everything from warfare to education to the household are all really fascinating.
What led you to write this book?
So I run a software company called Suzy, and when AI first became sort of something that became somewhat mainstream via ChatGPT, my first inclination was to give it to my engineering team. Our software company is about 75 engineers, and they really couldn't figure it out because it's unlike anything that we've seen in society before. So I took matters into my own hands and really tried to figure out how AI actually worked and how I can build an AI. And over time, I became a 10x engineer, even though I don't have a background in software development. And through that process, it really opened my eyes up to what's possible, how AI is going to unlock so much more potential and power within each of us. And it really inspired me so much that I felt like I needed to share with the world what I was seeing and experiencing.
So can other people are we going to have four major companies or whatever, controlling this like we do in media? You got Paramount, you got NBC, Universal, Comcast, you've got, Warner Brothers, you got the main big pillars, and then you got the Netflix and the Amazon. But in AI, is everybody going to have their own, or are we still going to answer to OpenAI, Google, Microsoft with OpenAI? I guess they're connected. DeepMind. Is that?
Yeah. I think right now what you're finding is you have NVIDIA, which obviously got a head start in the chips, and the chips power the large language models. Large language models is kind of what brings AI to life for most of us. And there are a handful of really powerful large language models. OpenAI has ChatGPT, Google has Gemini. Twitter and X has a great tool called Grok. That's underused, but Elon Musk built it, and it's incredibly powerful. And there's a tool called Claude from a company called Anthropic. So there's probably 4 to 5, and then there's one out of China called DeepSeek. These are incredibly powerful large language models that consumers are adopting towards. Could there be more? Perhaps, but those companies certainly have the majority of the power. On top of that, I think you're going to have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of powerful applications, which are essentially going to unlock the power of these large language models to create tools that you and I use on an everyday basis. And that's where a lot of the money is going to be made in AI in this completely new revolution that we're seeing.
Sorry, the money's going to be made where?
Well, the big companies, you're right. Like you talked about monopolistic companies, like whether it's the Googles and Facebooks today. So those companies are going to exist tomorrow, but on top of it, there's going to be a ton of new applications.
Boutiques.
That are going to be great.
There's going to be boutiques. Okay, so, but when you say NVIDIA, right, they make all the chips. I immediately think rare earth minerals are required, right, to make chips, and China controls all of that. So how are we, everyone says we're ahead of China, and we will always be ahead of China if we keep going, and maybe it's literally only by 3 or 4 months, but we're still ahead of them. But we get they control 85% or whatever it is of the world's market of rare earth minerals, which we need to make chips, and yet we have the big. So can't they slow us down?
Well, a lot of the chip manufacturing right now happens out of Taiwan. And it is actually starting to diversify into other areas around the world. But yes, we're a globalized society, and we're very much reliant upon places like China, as they are with us. Speaking of China, what we've seen in the last 6 months is the emergence of a tool called DeepSeek, which is a large language model, just like ChatGPT is.
It's just cheating off of us. Isn't it just cheating off of our homework?
There are a lot of stories out there that DeepSeek was trained on Google Gemini that just came out this week. But the real story was that apparently they built it with only $5 million of investment in chips. And once that story came out, NVIDIA's stock dropped more than any stock dropped in one day in history, right? So the question is, are these large language models really that hard to build? You can actually put a large language model on a thumb drive right now. So there's a lot of discussion about, is there going to be government regulation of AI? As long as you can put a large language model on a thumb drive, it's never going to be regulated. So we're in the Wild West. Nobody really has the answers. And there is an AI arms race right now. And the reason why is, yes, it's true. AI is a tool for productivity and creation, but it's also going to be used as a tool for the military, to power drones and to power military weapons. So it's also serious business in that regard.
Matt Britton is on with us right here on Hot Mics. He's written Generation AI, Why Generation Alpha and the Age of AI Will Change Everything. We know that is coming. We know that it's happening so quickly. I read this article called AI 2027, and it marches. Have you read it?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It walks you through now until the end of 2027. This is not a long time away. This is less than 2 years, but to the end of 27, where all of a sudden we have a panic because China and America are never going to cooperate with each other. And even if you have cooperation, someone's going to be cheating. We're going to be cheating while they're cheating because the competition is too great. And then the government is going to have to step in, and the government's going to have to take seats on these boards. Chaos is ahead. Just overall macro fear in that regard. Are you anyone who buys into the idea that AI could become so big and super intelligent that it could destroy civilization, or at least part of it?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I mean, first, let me address the US versus China dynamic. I think the reason that China has been able to accelerate their power in the world is because they become a highly productive society, right? They work 12 to 15-hour days. They don't take long vacations. And that work ethic have got them a level of productivity as such that if we want to buy goods, we have to buy them from China if we want them to be affordable. But what AI actually does is it favors the innovator, because the productivity actually now can be driven from machines. So anything that's really instruction or knowledge based, you can have AI do. And where has America got ahead? It's through innovation. And the innovation has not come from China. It really hasn't come from anywhere else around the world when it comes to technology,
Right.
but America. So the optimist in me says that the innovation will continue to come from the US and will actually be less reliant on other nations who win on productivity, because the technology actually can actually provide the productivity. To answer your bigger question, there is risk of, they say, AGI, which basically gets us to a state where AI is smarter and more powerful than humans. I mean, what enables me to sleep at night is ultimately, if that happens, we could just pull the power plug out.
Right? I was going to say, we can still go to these giant data centers that are everywhere and just...
That's right. That's right. Unless there's robots that have been trained to stand in front of them with, with M16s to make sure that we can't. I mean, who knows? And I think it's that's a dystopian view of the world. And listen, you remember Y2K?
Yeah.
Remember when the whole world was supposed to fall apart in the year 2000?
Where did you go? You're a young man, but where did you go? I went down to the Outer Banks with some people, and we rented a house, and we all, at midnight, we all waited to see if the banks were going to shut down and everything. We overreacted.
I was in Miami chasing girls, so that's what I remember that night. But and then obviously with e-commerce, we all thought, oh, we're not going to put our credit card online. Everything's going to get stolen. Socrates said that people shouldn't write things because if they do, humans won't be forced to remember. Every single time throughout history, there's been a new technology. It's been demonized and fear mongering has come out. Now, this is at a different realm. This does have risks. But so is every other technology we've seen throughout history. So, I think that we really need to lean into the opportunities AI provides and try to build a more prosperous, lucrative, productive society versus just focusing on what could go wrong. Because the reality is, yes, AI can be powerful for bad actors, but it can also be powerful for those stopping the bad actors.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you go to, and by the way, you look at you got cyber warfare now on a totally different realm with AI, but actual warfare, military engagement, the first thing you do is take out their data centers and take out their AI, right? That's what you can bomb those.
That's right.
Not suggesting it.
That's what's going to start to happen for sure, because it's all about data.
Well, everything's about data. That's going to be the first place that you would go.
Yeah, they say data is the new oil, right? And it's so true, because that's what powers AI. Like, you have access to ChatGPT, so do I, but what differentiates the benefit we get from it is the data that we put in it.
Yep. So we discussed a little macro. Let's talk a little micro, what people are really thinking and feeling, and a lot of people have fear. I would think as the years progress, the next 3-4 years out, when they conduct polling and ask people, do you support AI or not? Do you like it? Most people are going to say no. I think there's going to be a very negative feeling about it from people because of
Why do you think that, Billy?
Because of the fear underneath that they're going to be replaced. And that is the big cloud that's looming.
So here's the reality. If
you're not an innovator, you're just a worker.
I got it. If companies can get rid of 20% of their employee base through AI, well, then those companies are going to be 40% more profitable, right? And then GDP is going to rise, and you're going to have so much free cash flow in society. And what happens when companies have a ton of free cash flow? They tend to reinvest it. And when they reinvest, it creates new jobs. So there's a stat that recently came out that 85% of the jobs that will be available in 2030 don't exist yet. And that's because those jobs will be driven and created by a new wave of investment that's going to come from these companies becoming so productive. So I think what's going to happen in the short term is you're going to see a lot of job loss. I actually think it's going to happen in the back half of 2025. We've already seen companies like Microsoft and Google cut employee bases, and they say that the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Where it is distributed is with these incredible big tech companies. But I think in the back half of the year, you're going to start to find that companies that that employ middle America, like FedEx and Walmart and Costco and Home Depot, they're going to make cuts because they're going to lean to AI and robotics. I think in the short term, you're going to see a ton of unemployment, but I think over time, it should make our economy much more productive, and we won't need as much money to invest in goods and services because of AI. And I think that will increase our quality of life over time.
Okay, so if you're speaking to a person that works at Home Depot, and they're
I do every day.
Okay.
I speak to everyday people who really need to reinvent and future-proof themselves.
And they're terrified. What are you going to say to them? Like someone's in receiving, shipping and receiving.
This is what I tell them. Your workplace is not going to save you. So I speak to people that work at the largest tech companies out there, and they actually aren't able to use AI in a way that enriches them and future-proofs them because the company's legal department and privacy and data security teams get in the way where they can't even download new tools, let alone upload data. So they're not going to learn on the job. Where they're going to learn is at home. So let me give you an example. I created for myself my own personal health bot where I took 20 years of MRIs, X-ray information, blood test information, everything I can get my hands on in terms of my health history. And I created my own version of ChatGPT, which has one purpose: to keep me alive. And I ask it questions like, if I'm going to die in 5 years, what's the most likely cause? What's the 5 most important doctor's appointments I need to make this year and why? And can you print out reports that I can bring to each of them that they need to know? Through the process of creating that health bot, I learned what AI is capable of, and now I apply it to other areas of my life. And if somebody who's worried about being on the wrong side of this wants to know what to do, it's do something similar. Figure out something you're passionate about, go on ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT how you build it, and go step by step through the process. And going through that process, you're going to be able to educate yourself and put yourself in the 1% of knowledge base so you won't be on the wrong side of this.
So you can really, so you built this health bot, you built this profile of yourself through ChatGPT,
Correct. Yep, ChatGPT is something called a custom GPT. Yeah, it's amazing, but so easy to do, Billy. Like I could take 5 minutes
because
to show
it has
you how to do
memory,
it.
and you have a file, and it has memory, and so it picks up, it remembers everything you've told it.
That's exactly right. So ChatGPT itself is just trained on the internet itself, but you can create a version of it called a custom GPT that's just trained on the data that you want it to be trained on. So in the case of this, it's all my health information, and then it takes that with the knowledge it has from the internet, and they become the ultimate doctor. You could do the same with your financial information. If you're a mom, you could do the same with everything in your household: the Wi-Fi passwords, your kid's school schedule, the Little League schedule, your mortgage information, and then you essentially have a family chatbot. That's where it's all going. And people can build these things today. They just have to be curious enough. Go on YouTube, go on ChatGPT, say, how do I build it? And once you build, and you don't have to create tools from scratch. There are thousands of tools out there right now that cost $19.99 a month. Forego 3 cups of coffee from Starbucks and create something like this. And then if you bring that skill set into the workforce, you'll be the last one that gets cut.
You said financial information. I would think that, it's also, there's pirating and there's stealing of information, right? I mean, you don't think so?
No, that's a misconception because these AI tools essentially store your data in the cloud. You know what else stores your data in the cloud? Your bank, Gmail, everything else. All of our information is in the cloud. We're not using floppy disks anymore or hard drives. Everything that we have as data is already encrypted in the cloud. And that's how ChatGPT's data is stored. It's just a huge misconception. The risk is just as big as you making a purchase on Amazon as it is with you uploading your information to one of these tools.
Wow. Matt Britton is the author of Generation AI. This is incredible. It's riveting. You had your son, Matt, had a not so pleasant experience with AI. We're going to get that story from you in just a second. And who's winning the AI war, which is upon us, not just international, but it's right here in the country. I want to know who's the big bad donk. Is it Eli? Is it Sam? We'll get to that in a second. But Hot Mics with Billy Bush, sponsored by LA Golf, the most technologically advanced golf gear on the market. Get more out of your game with LA Golf's advanced ball technology and shaft design, taking your swing the extra distance. Another 10 to 12 yards. Come on, who doesn't want that? Although, length isn't everything, but it's true. 10 to 12 yards would be fantastic on your drive, especially my great friend Rob Silverstein, who's producing the show here. He's a very soft drive. He only hits his drive 220 yards, which is very sad. A 12-year-old does that. But with LA Golf, And the new driver, believe me, it's going to go a lot further. Don't miss a second of the action here on TuneIn Premium. Make sure you're following us on YouTube. We're back in 30 seconds with this story.
Welcome to LA Golf. You guys ready for the tour? We're the only golf company that manufactures its clubs here in the United States. All LA Golf drivers are built right here.
I'm very excited for today's production. It's going to be
4 left.
Anybody hungry? So does he work here?
Work here? He lives here.
And welcome back to Hot Mics with Billy Bush, brought to you by LA Golf. Our guest today is Matt Britton, the best-selling author of Generation AI. Okay, Matt, I've got some guys, by the way, our team here, everybody's curious about AI, so we'll get some questions coming.
I got one right now. Can we jump in?
Yeah, hop in. Steve?
I was just thinking about the synergy of create artistic and science, and I think about, our generation, like Terminator. That just comes to mind. All of this, Terminator takes over the world and all that stuff. Do you think, was James Cameron and these people kind of ahead on this stuff? Was it all the same minds working together?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw the movie Her, right? But with Joaquin Phoenix. But
Spike Jonze,
that literally is playing out right now.
Yeah, was that 2012? It's 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah,
Spike
I wrote
Jonze.
about that in my book. I mean, if you think about that, was basically an AI agent and chatbot built into one. And that tool is almost exactly as it was portrayed in the movie is now accessible to people. So a lot of those artists and Hollywood producers were really ahead of their time in predicting this. No one knew exactly when it would come, but it's here.
But Matt, you said, we were in a little preamble here when you and I were chatting, we talked about AI's been around since 1950. Explain that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, it's been around for a very long time, but the reality is it almost didn't matter because it was really built into kind of a deep technological infrastructure. Just like the internet was around for a very long time before AOL came out, and then everyone can access the internet and then it changed the world. So until the consumer can access it easily, the technology is there, but it's really kind of many layers deep. What ChatGPT did for AI is what AOL did for the internet. It brought it to the mainstream. It made it accessible to millions and now hundreds of millions of people. And that's when you start to see the societal shifts that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, Matt, I got to say it's, I think it's starting to hit like a crazy fever pitch. My girlfriend uses it as a therapist.
Yep.
For me. This is and this thing,
I don't know if that says more about you than it does about AI.
Everything she's told this thing about what my problems are, what my, insecurity, whatever, everything about it, it's dead right. It's when I read it, I'm like, oh no, that is me.
Well, you're a public figure too, so you have a lot of information that's already on the internet. So ChatGPT knows who you are, knows your history, et cetera. So in that regard, it could do a much better job that if someone was asking about a stranger that didn't have a profile on the internet.
Gotcha. All right, Rob, he's got a question for you.
Yeah, Matt, it's Rob Silverstein, Harris Silverstein's uncle. Great having you on the show.
My partner in crime, Harrison Silverstein,
That's right.
Shout out.
Now, explain to me what your son did that got him in trouble. Billy teased it before, and I'm interested to know.
Yep. So a couple years ago, right when ChatGPT came out, and obviously this isn't the only example of this, but he got caught using ChatGPT to write a term paper. And, we were supposed to go to the Super Bowl that weekend, and to teach him a lesson, I didn't take him because it wasn't that he was using ChatGPT, because obviously in the workforce, people are being rewarded for adopting AI. It's because he didn't disclose it, right? And he presented something else's work as his. But it does call into question, what is the future of education? And that is something that a lot of educators, professors are really grappling with right now, because a lot of the things that are being taught in classrooms are just slowly becoming irrelevant in the real world. But the problem is they're using textbooks that were written before a tool like ChatGPT even existed. It all starts with training tomorrow's leaders and tomorrow's citizens, and I think that all starts with reforming our education system, which has a long way to go.
I feel like writing is it's like boobs. Fake boobs and real boobs. You get excuse me, Matt, but they make fake boobs now that are exactly like perfect real boobs. And so, but you always get credit for real boobs. Like even a woman, like my girlfriend will say, look at she'll say, oh no, those boobs are natural. Those are natural. Like that's in a separate category. So
it's an interesting analogy. And I think what I can take away from that is that over time, everything's going to sound like everything else, right? If everything's written by AI and it's all trained with the same information, things will just quickly become very vanilla.
Yeah,
and what isn't is human intelligence and the human experiences. Like AI has never fallen in love, AI has never gotten sick, AI has never lived, AI has never died, right? And it's in those experiences that make us interesting. So I think that matters. But what is going to change is that, there's a tool out there right now called Google VO that came out a couple of weeks ago, where you can ask it to create a movie scene of anything you can imagine and ask the people to speak in any language, and they will do it. And those people don't even exist. So in that regard, you don't have to hire the film crew, the actors, you don't have to do location scouting. You can instantly get that video. So what does that mean for that entire Hollywood industrial complex? It's not great, right? But who wins in that regard? It's the person that actually has the idea, that's human at its core, that can feed into that model. So the notion of artistry is going to change. It's not going to go away, but a lot of the kind of production-oriented elements of graphic design, of videography, those are going away because AI is going to take away a lot of those roles. The other point is in Hollywood, you're going to start to see The Rock and Reese Witherspoon and, big actors and actresses start to actually create kind of clones of themselves or digital twins where they're going to be able to be in movies that they never shot in or commercials that they never shot in. So if you have IP value, you're going to be able to 10x your monetization. But if you're an extra on a set or an extra in business, you're going to be prompted right out of work.
So The Rock is going to make a giant action movie and he never did a damn thing. It's just he owns the IP of being The Rock. He is The Rock, so he gets paid the same amount.
Even more so, if I'm watching his movie and you are, the scripts could be completely different. And it could be dynamically generated based upon whatever the engine that's delivering the content knows about me. So we're going to get into an era of hyper-personalization where not only are we going to be, is The Rock going to be in a movie he didn't film, but he could be 1,000 different storylines within the same movie, all personalized in terms of what the user wants.
I will say this. We saw the first example for my business. Al Michaels was the voice of the highlights packages of the Olympics this last time around in London. The 2024 Summer Games in London, Al Michaels did the highlight packages. And I will say, Al has a beautiful, Paris, 2024 Paris, but whatever. Al's got a beautiful voice. He's like the greatest play-by-play guy ever, but it came out very stale. I said, that's not Al. If Big Al was doing it himself, it wouldn't be. AI didn't do a great job with it.
Oh, they cloned his voice
better.
And had him say it. Yeah.
It'll get better, I assume. It'll get more accurate, but
much better. It
felt stale.
So I think a big thing to remember about AI is today is the worst it's ever going to be. So if it doesn't do something great today, so I just mentioned Google, the Google VO tool, it stops at 8 seconds. You can only make an 8-second clip, but in 6 months it's going to be 80 seconds, and then in 18 months, it's going to be 4 hours, right? It's just the rate of change is unlike anything we've ever seen. It took 18 months from the first iteration of the first and second iPhone to come out. But now you're seeing AI double in its power and potency every 7 months. So when you're thinking about AI, it almost doesn't matter what it can do today. You have to imagine where it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now and actually act accordingly.
All right, another question from Rob here. I think it has to do with pornography.
Well, no.
Okay.
This is, what Super Bowl did you miss with your son? That's
you chickened out of the porn question,
no,
Rob?
I'm a huge Eagles fan, and it was actually the one that we lost to the Chiefs.
He wants to know what site can he go to for Lifelike.
Well, it's interesting. OnlyFans right now is for sale, and they apparently pull in billions of profit. And he's trying to obviously catch a big figure for that. But the reason that they're not getting a lot of interest in the marketplace is that the notion of AI influencers and AI adult entertainment stars is going to be here, where you're not going to really be able to tell the difference. And people are going to be able to kind of create their own characters that, tickle their fancy, so to speak. And it's going to completely change that game as well.
I have a real problem with this. I don't know what, this is very unsettling to me, but I saw some guy advertising on Instagram and he was like, I have like 60 AI influencer models who are like changing their clothes, doing their outfit changes or whatever. And they all have these giant followings of people who consume their content. And they're AI. They're not real. But
this might not even be you right now,
women.
Billy. How do I know you're not AI?
Well,
how do I know you're not AI? Maybe I'm talking to your avatar.
You know what I take out of that though is that whether it's porn or The Rock, is that these movies or these things can be generated for each person. So everyone, if they love The Rock, they can get if The Rock to make a movie for them.
But video games too. We're going to see video games being generated on the fly, where you could put your friend in the video game or your girlfriend in the video game, and that's where we're entering very soon.
I just say, look, if you can have an AI creator, an influencer, then you can have AI followers. In the end of the day, it's all fake.
Right. Well, I think the distinction of what's real and what's fake is going to be one of the biggest challenges of our modern society. And I think there is going to be a notion of people gravitating towards real, right? Concerts and festivals and trips, people aren't stopping traveling because they're taking an AI trip to the Bahamas, right? So there's going to be certain parts of society that people are going to lean into even more to kind of feel what it authentically means to be human.
What do you think about the word artificial? It's not a great word. It's better than synthetic intelligence, but artificial intelligence is like, if someone tells me, I'm going to give you something and it's artificial, I don't want that.
Right.
Well,
you don't want it, but what if it's an artificial version of a Porsche that would only cost you $5, but when you drive it, it feels the same and it rides just as good? Would you want it? Maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's, that would be the generic, right? Like we have that with medicine, the generic version.
Well, and I think that's a good distinction, right? Also, I think people will pay a premium for a true painting from an artist, and that will arguably become more valuable in the new world because AI-generated art is going to be, obviously proliferated throughout society.
Amazing.
Also, I was just thinking, at some point, could you get arrested for killing an artificial intelligence thing at some point?
A robot?
Killing,
you're saying will robots have rights?
Right. Well, robots have rights.
Oh
which
my
we've talked
about. Yeah.
Matt.
That's an interesting point. One I never thought of before.
You could sexually assault your robot girlfriend if they make one at some point and be like, well, what are you talking about? This is, and for those who are those sick people in society.
Right.
This is crazy.
Elon Musk, has Neuralink, where he's implanting chips in people's brains, and it's allowing people who have brain damage or are unable to communicate through chips in their brain. So that's a notion of if that gets proliferated, then it's, I don't know if you guys watch Black Mirror, but it's where does the human end and the robot begin? So distinguishing over time, Ray Kurzweil wrote about singularity, which is man and machine merging. And Neuralink is kind of the first step we've seen of that. Wow.
That's wild. We are talking to Matt Britton. He is the author of Generation AI. It's just, it's inescapable. I don't know. I mean,
Billy, it's probably freaking you out, but as somebody that lives in it, I spend 8 to 10 hours a day of my working hour, of my working life every day, just in these tools. I'm living at the edge, the very edge where AI is. And I can tell you, as big as everybody thinks it is, it's 1,000 or 10,000 times bigger in terms of impact. It's also coming a lot sooner than I think people realize because the rate of change. We've never seen a technology evolve so quickly.
It teaches itself. The one model creates the next model, and then it's gone, and then the next model builds. That's why I wondered the only end if it gets out of control is you made me feel better when it said somebody could pull the plug.
Yep.
All right, Rob's got another question.
We already have a problem in the country with wealth distribution. Isn't this just going to make that worse?
Yes. I think, especially in the short term, obviously there's, countries and nations all over the world where you have the 0.01% controlling 99.9% of the wealth, and they live up on a hill with guard dogs in front of the gates, and everyone else is fighting for their scraps at the bottom of the hill. And we think for some reason in America that would never happen. But I think what's going to happen with AI is it's going to concentrate the power and the wealth even more, because the people that figure it out are just going to be so productive, and it's going to just drive so much, inflow of capital to them. So I think there stands to be a huge wealth disparity gap. On the flip side, it's going to make things cheaper, right? It's going to make labor cheaper. If you no longer have to hire help to clean your house or to mow your lawn or even to paint your house, right? Then all of a sudden it's not as expensive for you to live on a day-to-day basis. And if it's not as expensive, then your money will carry you further in life. So you can look at this through the rose-colored lenses or the doom-colored lenses, every single day. And, no one really knows how this is going to unfold.
Oh my God. All right, Jeremy's got one. Hey, Jer.
Hello. There's been some talk about if the jobs go away, universal basic income distributed to everyone. Like, what would that look like?
Well, I think it will have to, because it's basically like a Civil War tax, right? Like if all the jobs go away and 99% of the people can't take care of themselves and their family, well, obviously we all know what will happen if that occurs. So I think it is a case for UBI if we go down that path, which again, I'm not so sure.
Bernie Sanders. Bernie was right all along. Bernie is, by the way, Bernie was talking about socialism in 2016, and lots of men liked him. The Democrat Party has a lot of problems with men right now, but men liked Bernie. They did. Especially young men who were like, fuck the rich. They're making too much money.
Right.
This is too and his socialist message kind of resonated with people.
Well, I mean, we saw what happened with all the fiscal stimulus during COVID, right? Where people were getting all this money. And then there's this whole notion of quiet quitting. There was a point in time where you couldn't even hire anyone to work because people were flush with cash and they had no expenses. And, now obviously that has changed, but who knows what AI is going to do to that moving forward. This
is the Democrats' way back in. By the way, is this wealth disparity thing. I mean, that's it. Trump's sitting up there, for all the things we like about the Donald. He is grifting in broad daylight, getting richer, and he's worth about $7 billion now or whatever it is, and it's just piling on, and people are going to get pissed. Yeah, and the government's role in AI is really a fascinating one. They, Trump appointed a guy named David Sachs, who is a brilliant entrepreneur. And it was one of the first times, at least in my life, where I saw somebody that was aspirational to be in business take an important, meaningful role in government. Now, not everyone agrees with what he says or his policies, but I think it's undeniable that he understands AI, he understands technology, and AI is so important that you don't want a lifelong politician overseeing something with AI that really doesn't understand how it works, that doesn't have that Silicon Valley network. So I think that's hopeful, and he's built a great team around him that can hopefully help navigate this. Wow. Yeah, he's the All In podcast. Good one. Yep. Matt Britton, author of Generation AI. So what should before we part, what do you want to tell? Give me a great positive. I want a positive for people out there. Tell them something great about AI in their lives. To be effective at AI, you do not need to learn a new skill set. There was a huge kind of learning curve with past technologies because you had to be technical. But with AI, you really don't need to be technical. You just have to be curious, ambitious, and focused on the problem you want to solve, and then persevere through solving one problem. My challenge to everyone listening to this is figure out a problem that's most important to you personally, and then figure out what data you have that can help you solve the problem, and go on ChatGPT and ask, how can I solve this problem? And go through it step by step. And on the other end, you're going to find that you're so much more educated and you feel empowered to basically put AI to use for you instead of being scared of what it can do for you moving forward. That's beautiful. And I say, look, if you're going into college and you're choosing a major, computer science is pretty obvious. But if everyone did that, that would suck. So I'd say if you're not interested in that, become a carpenter. Right? Don't go into debt to go to college. It's the worst time to do that. If your parents can send you through and you want to have fun and build a great network and have great memories, awesome. But if you're, one of the big percentage of young Americans that aren't in that position, don't go into debt. Spend your time instead learning AI, mastering your skill set, go into a trade skill, Billy, like you said. But I think a lot of people are starting to question the value of that higher education right now in this world, given how fast things are changing. My daughter liked that because she didn't go the traditional route. One of them, the other two did, but one of them is going to be like, see, Matt, I'm going to edit
Might
that
be
out.
right.
I'm kidding. We're live. I love you, baby. Matt Britton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you for your book, Generation AI. It's a national bestseller. It's kicking ass. Generation AI, why Generation Alpha in the age of AI will change everything. Be better parents. We got to be more cognizant. That's what we got to do. You got little kids, 0 to 15, and they're growing up with their little AI partner. You got to make sure they go to summer camp without it. You got to make sure that they, go to the park and play. That kind of stuff. Right? Just
That's
say
right.
All right, Matt. Thank you so much. We really
Great seeing
appreciate
you,
it.
Billy.
Wow. Fascinating conversation. Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by LA Golf. We have so much to think about. Take your swing to the next level. Get out there and play golf. AI can't fix your golf game. Visit lagolf.com. Upgrade your game. And thanks for listening to us on TuneIn. If that's what you do, if you miss a show, you can go to tunein.com/hotmics to catch up on previous episodes. If you have not subscribed on YouTube, please do. And we'll see you next time.